start at that number there, and then, you know, if you apply for the bond there and you don't use it all, you're only gonna get charged on what you use. But if you go for a small one, and you don't have enough money, what are you gonna do? That's
My only hesitation is we're not supposed to get it go back and forth. I can explain all this to you. It's not that question you can answer. But I would like to explain to you if you come to the open house on Saturday. I would like to explain to you.
I'll think about that.
Hey, Bob, I'll just say that municipal funding, the legislative body, which is the voters, vote for $1. That's it.
That's right, that's what I'm trying to say.
If you want to suggest that we ask the voters to approve a $10 million bond, and we're gonna tell you we can get you in that car for $4.5 million. Who's gonna buy it?
Well, you should be honest in the bill.
We are being honest. We think that $3.5 million is what this town can
You
afford
think you can't
for one
guarantee
fire
that.
station this year.
No, what I'm saying is you can't guarantee that people will apply.
I can guarantee you that we won't overexceed it. That the bond is gonna be what it is, and if it does come in under, we won't use it all.
That's why I'm saying, whatever that figure is that he has, use that. Simple as that, 14.
We tried that the last time we proposed a bond and the people didn't want it. 58% of the people did. 60% was the threshold. So we listened to the people. We're trying to come in with a more reasonable fire station.
I'll keep my comments.
Thank you.
And anyone who has similar concerns, really, at this open house we have tomorrow on Saturday, this weekend, and next weekend as well. Members of the committee and the fire department will be at station number 2 from 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we'll be glad to answer questions. I can go into more detail about that in those sessions as to where we think some savings are here, where the selectmen have identified some savings and so on. It's just not what we're doing is we're considering this figure, and that's the figure that we're going to be asking the town to fund. And the town won't be spending more than this figure. We'll get it.
Okay, so that's all I ask from you, is send me that email out.
I'll send you that email.
That's all I need, Chris.
I'll also try to explain, if you're not gonna be able to be there Saturday, then I'll explain what I know about where the costs come from. So the cost is. And anybody else in particular who has feelings like that as well, yes.
I'm not having feelings like that. Steve Russell, Katie Lane, Swanzey. I'm sorry that this building has not been passed for how many years. My concern is for the staff of this town. They've been subjected to those diesel fumes for years. And the potential of them going into retirement and getting cancer is just huge. The reason why I know that is because I spent 12 years running the fleet in King, New Hampshire. And in that fleet, I worked for fire to reduce the emission. And studying that fuel, I found out there's some pretty nasty stuff coming out of the exhaust. So 2 things, I'm hoping you have an exhaust system built into that building. That's an important, it's an injection system when you plug it in, when you take off, they pop out. But I think hopefully that's part of it. And then, you know, and this is a pretty cheap heuristic thing, but I would recommend that you consider putting in this funding right now from the state, a couple of electric vehicle charging stations, because eventually your vehicles will be electric. So I would encourage that. There's a $15 million grant program right now. You should consider applying for some infrastructure for that building. It'd be a level 2, maybe 2 or 3 of them. So even there's that becoming the lightning product pickup truck, they can plug into this and juice while they're cutting apart. Couple of things, but I really support this during this time. I think I would have preferred it to be in center Swanzey, you know, somewhere there, but there's no there. So, but I think this is a great possibility. Now we scale it back, and it's going to be wood, and we're going to story that goes away, therefore three folks will understand. the goal of it.
That's right, thanks for those comments. It is gonna be 2 stories in a sense.
No, but you have to change it, no, yeah.
And we do have the charge, the
Exhausted.
exhaust system, you're talking about as part of the cost. It's built into the cost.
Good.
The charging systems are not, but it's something like they're, yeah, rates.
Yeah, and I'll work with you.
Okay. And we're also looking at the potential of those solar panels on the roof as an additional grant funding.
Yeah, you have to make sure the structure is not.
It's built to the design. So, design for that. Good. Now, Bruce.
Bruce Taper from Swanzey, I guess. How confident are you getting the 200,000 congressionally directed spending grant and the other 500,000 and another, well, 150 is going to come from what we already have. With some of the chatter I've heard coming out of Congress, they're going to be trying to pick up. And how confident are we in getting down monies so we won't have to raise some of those things?
So the 500,000 is funding that the voters have saved over the last several years, so that's in a account for the trustees of trust funds. The 200,000 is a federal award that we received several years ago now, so it is secure, and the only concern is every year we wait, I hold my breath that they're gonna say, all right, we're gonna give it to someone else, because Swanzey hasn't supported the project, but as far as the last correspondence, it's still awarded. But we did make the language a little bit more general in terms of grant or other aid, because otherwise, if we were too specific, and we didn't have a $200,000 grant, you could not get the bond, so we made it a little bit more general, you could get some other funds. But right now it is secure.
Thank you.
Okay, so, really love to see anybody who wants to come talk to us on the Saturday.
Thank you.
Article 5, yeah, you're reading them. Did you read the notice or you're reading the full sentence? So again, another long article here that I will not read, we'll take you to read, but we'll give you the synopsis, so this is another long article. So the town's required to appropriate the full sum for this with $6.4 million. It's based on a loan from the New Hampshire Drinking Water Trust Fund, which would purchase and improve by the time of the West Swanzey Water Company, which is currently a private water utility in the area around Route 10, Homestead, Woolly Mill. We'll talk a little bit about the area when we get there. So we completed a grant funded study in 2024 by Underwood Engineers, which was basically assessing the system to understand what it currently consisted of and what it would need if it were to become a town system. This article would have no direct tax impact in 2025, and there's a few articles related to this. We'll talk about it a little bit more. But for a brief introduction, we have Ben Dreyer here from Underwood Engineers.
Thank you, Mike. So as Mike said, we had studied in the last year the West Swanzey Water Company, which maybe some of you are familiar as a private system, a small system, serving about 400 people roughly in West Swanzey. We can do the next slide, please. So the graphic on the right is the service area, and the actual water lines are in blue. So basically, it goes up and down the Route 10 corridor. To the north would be Nick's Restaurant, that's just about reaches that far to the north. To the south, Angie's Pizza, that's about the limits of the system. And then if you can see the purple lines out to the left and right, that's the limits of how far the system could go based on pressure, which is driven by topography.
It doesn't actually go to those two north and south landmarks, they are there for reference, and I know this picture's kind of small, the whole report that Ben did. Is on the town website under 2025 town meeting information, so I know some of these visuals are tough to see. That little report is
Yeah, just try to give you some general landmarks. So basically the system, it has two active wells. There's a little orange circle in the center, that's off of Perry Lane. So that's currently supplying water. There's a third well that's inactive. But there's plenty of water in the aquifer. It's good quality water. So the supply is excellent. And so basically, also I think you may be aware, or at certain times this idea has come up before of if the town will take this over. The current owners are expressed the potential to sell that, or interest to sell that possibly. Because of the way the system is operated, currently there's no capital reserve for improvements, and because of the age of the system, which is basically late 1960s, so we're going on 60 years now. There are some needs that are required in the near term. Basically, the high points of that is there's inadequate storage in the system. So that means we're getting to the point where there's not going to be any new service connections that can be provided because of that limited storage. Also, the fire flows are limited. So some of the hydrants don't provide the standard amount of water that the fire truck needs to fight fires. Next slide, please. So here's the photos of the system. The photo on the left is pump house number 1. So inside is the pump for the well number 1. You can see that in the photo on the right. The motor is the gray unit that has a shaft that goes down into the well and brings the water out. On that photo on the right, in the upper right corner, that's the storage tank. It's a 10,000 gallon tank. You can think of it like it's a hydromatic tank like you have maybe if you're on a well in your basement. And that's basically equalizes pressure in the system so it's not kicking on the pumps on and off. So you can see the generator is the little yellow box in the front of the picture on the left. That does not have an automatic transfer switch, so when you lose power, somebody from the water system has to come out, turn the generator on, so then everybody on the system is going to be able to get water during power. So just a number of things like that don't meet modern standards that need to be addressed. Okay, we can go to the next slide, please. So these are some example photos of what would be proposed and a summary of what's needed. So I'll just go quick left to right on these photos. First one is just what a new pump house might look like. Modern construction would be concrete masonry units, some sort of copper siding, asphalt type of roof. The photo in the middle would be what it might look like inside. So there'd be new pumps and new piping, and then there would also be a new water storage tank. So we'd have to look at the locations where that would be. It may be steel, it could be concrete, it could be elevated. There's different styles, but that's just to give you a sense of what that is. So the kind of 3 main components, how we've broken this down is the purchase of the West Swanzey Water Company. That's estimated about $600,000. Then the new pump house would be $2.5 million. So that's new pumps, new generator, and a new building for both of the wells and well pumps. And then the storage tank would be $3.3 million. So that would provide the additional storage capacity in the system to allow new connections and also would provide fire flows. There's also a 12-inch water main that would, connect the storage tank to the system as well. So we'll talk a little more about the cost and the funding, but I think the message here to keep in mind is that these improvements are needed, like, period, in the near term. So whether the town were the ones to take this over or somebody else, or remains as West Swanzey Water Company, these are the improvements in the need and the price tag that the system is facing. Next slide, please. All right, so total project cost $6.4 million. The town has been working a couple different funding options. The current award is from New Hampshire DES Clean Water SRF. This is the low interest loan program. In this case, DES is offering 40% principal forgiveness, which for all the different projects and applications that we see, we have never seen 40% principal forgiveness. It's unprecedented funding offer. So they're really kind of giving this project a nudge or a boost. In our meetings with DES, they're telling us you will probably not see this again, especially like not next year. So it's pretty unique in that way. A little bit on the I guess the impacts on the system. So with this or the system users and ratepayers, if this went forward, the typical residential water bill for annual rate would go up about $1,000. So a typical bill right now is maybe in the ballpark of $600. That would become $1,600 for the year. So understanding that is a significant increase. The town is really working hard to also pursue some other funding sources. So additional grant funding will bring that number down a little bit further. And also we anticipate a future increase on the overall municipal tax rate of about 5 cents per thousand. That is for the hygiene service, which is about 20% of the overall cost. I'll also say in the handouts, there's a fact sheet that kind of breaks out some of those numbers a little bit further. If you are interested in looking at those. Okay, next slide. So basically, two outcomes. What if it passes? What if the article fails? So if it passes, then the town will be able to provide safe drinking water and sustainable rates. This is because of the planning and the study that's already been done. The town has a plan on how to do this. It reduces the potential for unplanned impacts to the system and the user. So I guess the concern would be like if a pump went out and it was unplanned because it's on its last legs. Now there's a cost to replace that, and could require a sudden increase in the rates. So by planning those improvements, it allows the rates to be increased over a planned period of time. So the costs are managed through the funding opportunities. The town as a municipality probably has one of the better positioned for a number of different types of funding programs. It'll have improved management through transparency, public input. So you come to selecting meetings or to the town for all your other kind of town business. So your water bill would be no different. There's also would allow for commercial development opportunities, because now there would be more capacity in the system to allow those additional service connections. And it would be a modern facility meeting the current and future needs of local residents and businesses. This would also expand the town infrastructure and manage natural resources. So the aquifer is an important natural resource that is in the town zone. So what if the articles were to fail? The water system is going to remain vulnerable to equipment failure and aging equipment. It's going to give out at some point. There's potential for unplanned rate increases to address emergency system repairs if that equipment does fail. There's less funding opportunities for a private system than a municipal system. Private control, so it may not be as transparent, and future ownership, if the town doesn't take it over, who is going to take it over? You may not know who that's going to be, may not like who that's going to be, I don't know. Lost opportunity for economic development, so those new connections aren't going to be able to happen until these improvements are done. And then aging facilities are challenged to meet current system demands, so there's no additional connections. And as I mentioned on the last slide, you know, the state grant funding would be less if this was to be done in the future or attempted again in the future. State statutes and RSAs require a 2-year waiting period before the article is brought forward again. So realistically, it would be 2 or 3 more years. And you know, so the prices would be higher, the equipment would be that much older. So those would be kind of some of the challenges if the article would. I think the message here is that, you know, the town is coming with a solution. If it wasn't the town, then who would it be? We don't, not aware of anybody else coming to the table with that sort of idea or funding opportunity. So the cost will be higher and there'll be less control. Next slide.
Yeah, so just as we wrap up on this one, so, the authorizes the selection of our other funds. And like I mentioned before, there's gonna be 2 other articles that sort of relate to this, one more than the other. I'm hoping to get the discussion here. So if you have questions about the water company aspect, either about the system currently or about what the town potentially taking over would look like, this would be the time we're going to ask you to give that input. As you know, so you can start thinking your way up here. So the other articles I'll just briefly mention is Article 12. So the state outlines a process where the voters by a 2/3 vote. So this is 60% of the funding authorization, but 2/3 vote by the voters to move forward with the acquisition, and then that in theory give the selectmen time to negotiate. Those discussions that already happened with the water company, already started. So then if this passes, we would either have to have a special town meeting to formally ratify the purchase or at the next annual meeting. So it's like a 2-part process. Barbara Shaker. I answer your question or?
So what we would need, if this passes, we need another meeting to ratify what?
Basically the town operating system. So the borrowing is authorized by this article. But the other article that we'll get to later, Article 12, authorizes the selectmen to start the process of acquiring the system. And the next, that needs to be ratified again. So basically it's not an easy, which it doesn't happen. It's not an easy process, just a one-time vote to take over the water system.
So this warrant Article 5 authorizes the selectmen to raise and appropriate money, which we're anticipating will be from the state revolving fund. If that doesn't come through, does that give the selectmen authority to go elsewhere for this 6.4 million?
No, it's specific to that fund. Again, kind of freezed over the language because it's a lot, but if you look at page 6 of the handout, it's specific to the drinking water state revolving loan fund. It says 40%. So it's not being
It's additionally to authorize. So. Okay, so here's something that doesn't. So. I have a question. I was told by a former sewer commissioner that the existing wastewater treatment plant while maybe not have full capacity for receiving waste, is at close to capacity for treating waste. So if we're talking about acquiring this water system with part of the idea of future development along Route 10, which means more water going into the wastewater treatment system, how are we going to handle that water if the current wastewater treatment plant is almost near capacity for treatment? And maybe, I don't know if there's someone from Public Works who could better explain that concern.
Joe DeRusso from Public Works, so yeah, they are correct, I'd say we are at capacity for treatment right now. But we are in the middle of a planning study, regardless to deal with the water system. We are working on a planning study correcting some of those issues. Also to be able to meet the requirements of future permits that come down the road, because the permits become more and more challenging. And the current facility is not meeting those requirements. So regardless of what takes place with the water, there is planning and study going on to identify what is going to need to be done at the water treatment plant, at the wastewater treatment plant. So regardless of this, the wastewater treatment plant is going to need upgrades.
Yeah, Bob LaRoche from Swanzey. I just want to say that there's a 52-page book here that describes a lot of the work. I support this project very much because it's going to help out with future development on Route 10 and commercial development. But I don't think we should rush into efficiency. We're dealing with 5 efficiency. I think we should wait till next year. I would like to see a letter from DES when our actual time, if we can extend it. You know, inquire with the water supply bureau, and then tell them that we need another year for a proper plan. And that's basically what it gets down to, proper planning. We need to have some study groups or workshop groups, whatever. In the evenings, a lot of the older folks don't like to travel out. We should have some of those in the afternoon when a lot of the others here are working. So I think we need to have a couple sessions and maybe one on a Saturday. I would like to see everybody, it's going to affect one part of town, but the whole town is going to pay for this. So I think we'd all like to know, what's involved here and to understand it. So that we can, as the people that come to the meetings, can leave with a positive note and know what's going to happen. So that they can tell their neighbors. I would like to see this pass by 70% if we do it right. That's what my piece.
So I think the main thing I'd like to clarify is this would be a general obligation of the town. The whole town would need to approve the borrowing. But the intent is that it would be the statute for RSA 38, which is the other article we'll talk about, is very clear that those expenses need to be separated from the town's general fund. And it can't be commingled, so there will be like a cost for the hydrants, like Ben mentioned, but in general, it's not something that the whole town.
Yeah, so this is the first time I've heard it, this joke here. I just want to make sure I understand. What you're saying is the town votes on it. But the town only pays 5 cents of the tax rate. People are really paying for this, so the $1,000 that are using it, right?
Correct.
Is that my understanding correct? Yes. Okay, I just want to make sure I understand, right? It's really the people using it that are paying for it. And that's kind of a weird way to vote. Basically, I'm voting to pay for somebody to pay more money. That's a weird thing. Well, in the past,
I live in Eastwood,
Bob, in the past, we had the 5th district over at Safford Drive. The town voted for it. But the 5th district, the development of it is being paid by the properties on Safford Drive. So, I mean, it could happen in your neighborhood.
Yeah, I understand. It's an interesting way to look at it, right? I mean, if I'm sitting there, affected by this is a big deal. Hey, right now, it's not, right? That's a weird thing.
Yeah, just show, so Ben mentioned it in this presentation, but just to reiterate, it's one of the other points Mr. Grover brought up was waiving here, which ideally, sure, we do it here when there's nothing else on the plan, not sure when that'll be, because the fires, we've been waiting for the fire station to get resolved since I've worked here for 10 years, so. But that funding will not be available, we cannot go for this, if these two articles fail, we can't bring it back. So it's not necessarily a one-time shot, but you can't guarantee the blood those funds. So next. Go with Mr. Proctor, since he hasn't spoken at all yet.
Just a question about the infrastructure that's in place. That studied, I mean, what are the names, what are the, do they need current codes? You know, there's a thing about piping, that's an issue. What's in the ground now and what does it, how does it stand with the current codes for water distribution?
The study primarily looked at the pumps and the supply. We did an inventory, so there was like 7,000 approximately linear feet of pipe. Cast iron, ductile iron, and asbestos cement. So that's an inventory. So we didn't identify that there was a need to replace any of the piping. Piping generally lasts longer than some pump stuff. Some of it's newer. So the piping was built to service, or the water system started to serve woolen mills, and then later it was expanded and it became, you know, residential service. So some of that piping is relatively newer. The study we did some asset management so that we're projecting out further. So say, you know, identifying in 10, 20-year chunks areas of water need to be replaced. That's built into the rate structure. So there would be time to build capital reserves to address that part of the system. So the focus was really on getting the pump and wells and water storage tank. So it's turnkey. So in general, the piping is in an acceptable condition. There is a study being done on the lead services. So you mentioned about the copper services. So we're not doing that, but that is being addressed. There's funding for that. It's a separate effort.
I'm just looking at it as long-term costs to the town. You know, it's not the $6.4 million now, it's the perpetual maintenance. And what are the, you know, what has to be upgraded to meet current standards. So to take this over, do we want?
Right. So the 6.4 is what's it to make it turnkey, and in addition that it would be reasonable to accept it. It would be a good idea for the town to take it on, and then it's the rates that the users are paying when they, you know, turn their faucet on to pay for that water, is building capital reserves for future improvements like replacing pipe later on down the road. So that was part of it.
Okay, so do we have to meet current standard, if the town takes this over and you're changing ownership? Does the town have to meet current standards, or can that be operated in the condition it's in other than pumps, tanks, etc.? I mean, not, you know, I'm looking at what has to be, there's nothing grandfathered anymore, as far as I know.
The conclusion of the report and the study was that it wouldn't be advisable for the town to take it over in its current condition. As far as the aging pumps and all this. Because this, you know, it has to be done, this needs to be done. And so why would they take on a headache of system that is like on its last legs. So that's why 6.4 million is to make it turnkey, so it's in a, you know, condition that's ready for the town to then operate it and, you know.
Are there other things that would need to be done? Immediately?
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
no,
us to run it, us being the town of Swansea to run this system. At change of ownership, is the state going to say, now, wait a minute, you've got copper services to all of these things, we need to get the copper count down. So we want them changed to plastic. We've got AC in there, you know, I'm sure there's ductile, I'm sure there's,
Yeah.
you know, but I'm sure there's AC in there too.
all the other water systems in the state have those too. So they're not, there's no mandate or those are not, the piping does not need to be updated. Or there's, you know, until it just.
I think the question is, right, it was obviously either poorly run as a private company. Or it's not a viable institution. He's asking, is it viable for the town to run it? Are we gonna make enough money to update it, maintain it as we go? That's the question that I would like answered.
And that's
Is it a viable company?
Yes, and that was the focus in the outcome of the report. That was the question that our report was wanting to answer. And so, yes, that is the conclusion that we came to. It's not
Running it by a town has advantages. We've got a cheap source of capital, right? So with that cheap source of capital, with the rates, is it viable to maintain it, grow it? Well, I mean, I'd like to see all of Swansea have town water. But the question is this a viable business? I'm asking you, you guys have done the work, is this a viable business?
I think the difference between a public utilities corporation or committee, whatever it is, PUC controlled business, which is a private business.
And they're taking the profits out, not reinvesting.
No,
That's poorly run. The question is, can you?
it's not poorly run. The only way to do improvements to a PUC controlled private business utility is to fund it. You go out and you borrow the money and you do it.
Or you make profits and you reinvest those, right? That's like running like a business.
They don't allow you to do that. They don't allow you to do capital reserves. You can't raise the rate to put money away for the future. They won't let a business do that. They'll let a municipality. That's one of the crazy things PUC does. You have to have venture capital, you have to go out. You know, if groundwater want to do it, West Swansea Water, they go out, they put $6 million into it. Then the PUC looks at the numbers and says you can charge people $1,000 more a year. So that's how a private business would have to do it. A municipal can put away money for a rainy day, build equity that way.
But the town leaders, that's what we're planning on, so.
Yes, ma'am.
Kristen,
So no one's Swansea. What does PUC stand for?
Public Utilities Commission.
So if we put in that money, the 6 million into this, they say, well, we don't need to sell it anymore?
They won't. Do us.
We will have bought it.
We're municipal, so we would deal with the Department of Environmental Services and DRA.
What we're voting on is whether or not we want to buy it and the improvements.
Correct. Like Ben said, that's the only way to do it. If we just bought it without the improvements, the report says you shouldn't do it.
Okay. So it's a combination of those two things.
Barbara?
An increase of $1,000 a year seems pretty hefty, and I'm just curious if the current water users are aware of this or were involved in all of this discussion, how they feel about it, and was that an annual increase? I mean, is it going to be $1,000 more for a number of years for them?
So that's where we'll ultimately get to. So how the loan works is we don't start paying it back until all of the improvements are done. So it's gonna be a several year process. In the meantime, we can start raising the rates more incrementally, start building some capital. So that's if we just start immediately, we have to go up that amount. It's not necessarily what it's going to end up going, increasing to. And, it's gonna be several years down the road.
I assume that the alternative is to drill your own well and your own septic. So that's much more than $1,000 a year.
We can see the branch that margins.
And Ben, with the $1,000 increase they put out there, would that be the flat fee, the volume rate, and the tax? Like the district tax, or not depending on that?
It's based on water, it's based on consumption, on your water, whatever your water consumption is, so we use the state average, you can go to the dashboard. So what a typical home would use times, what the water rate that's needed to fund. The debt service on the improvements, plus operating expenses, and all that's already built into the existing rate, so it's the increases for the improvements. But does that answer your question?
I was just wondering if there's like a district tax involved also.
No, because so the precinct, I work for the North Swanzey Water Fire Precinct, they have an additional tax because it's to be part of the town. You cannot have a separate additional tax, so just
It is worth noting too, though, that it's like more users will bring rates down because they're selling more water. So it's like right now it's a little bit of the catch-22, but if you can't put more connections on, and then there's some sort of failure that requires repair, and now you have a rate. You also, it's only on the users that are on there now. If you make this investment, and then more people can connect and start running the system with better planning and management, the rates that'll get spread out over time. So it's not as big of a burden on smaller users.
So the most important thing about this whole thing is Route 10. It's Route 10 is where we're gonna grow.
Yeah.
And to put businesses or anything on Route 10, the main thing we're gonna need is water and the correct pressure. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So that's what we need to storage tank. So basically, if we don't do this, we're kind of holding back Route 10 on bringing in some nice business that will help us in taxes in the future and all this. I feel that, it's gotta happen in one way or another to grow Route 10 and these surrounding areas. And when you talk about rates and we add these businesses on, it'll help out the rates. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's yeah.
Kevin Underwood, West Swansea, I just have a question on the loan forgiveness aspect of the deal. One, are all three projects, acquisition, pump house, tank, subject to that loan forgiveness? And two, if you could very briefly speak to the impact of how that works as for example, if it's a 25-year loan, do you stop paying when you've reached $3.8 million of payoff, 13, 14, 15, 16 years into that loan? That's just an example, right?
So your first question, sorry, I was cataloging, the answer was yes.
Yeah, yes, all components are
Yeah.
factored into.
Yeah, so that's the 6.4 million, is those three components, and that would be the loan amount, would be for 6.4. And then they take the 40% off, so you're paying back interest on remaining 60. And the loan works like a construction loan, so everything we budgeted it'd be a 30-year loan. Just over 3% are the numbers that we're using. And then it can be amortized like your mortgage payment is, or the numbers that we ran are level payments. So as you pay level principal, and then the interest payments decrease over the course of a couple ways that they apply. So
So it sounds like it would still be for the full term of the loan, you don't just stop paying part of it because you reach a dollar limit. The total capital owed will be reduced.
yeah, so they adjust the principal.
Got it.
Yeah.
this one's for you. There was also included in this West Swansea water thing, 2.5 million to run a pipe up Route 10.
So
From West Street up to North Winchester Street. Has that been,
So that's kind of the third article, we kind of related this, the TIF district, so that would be funded out of it, and if that would happen, that would be through the TIF district.
That would- okay.
Later, but that's not included.
okay, I just wondered where it went.
A few years ago. We ran into problems with. Things, whatever that all storage there, that's. They couldn't open their business because we didn't have enough water supply going out to that end, they ended up putting. I don't know if they put it in the slide out. But they had to increase their investment in a inadequate policy in order for them to run a business. So if you don't have the, it does no good to have the well just sitting there watering the field where you really need the volume if you want to see the growth. And I think it both should go together. Is what I get at. So I know it's a lot of money, but there should be some plans in place. And learn what it's going to, so many feet of pipe per year. We're going to put in for this amount of money. And because we still, if you look out the window. We've got a wonderful mill that's still sitting here. My understanding, the places that wanted to go in there, but they didn't have adequate water supply. So, we're in the catch-22 situation. So my views on that.
That's what it needs storage, so we need the pressure, we need all that. Which basically it does, it's useless, it is useless. You basically, right.
Oh, so we get to 12.
Or 11 specific to, we're gonna leave on what that goes, so the specific to water lines or anything. Rather just. Not about that.
Then we,
Actually, yes, but, yeah, we have to go, right?
Yes, Richard Way, East Road. It's my second time to one of these meetings. And I'm concerned for the voter. They just went through a reassessment. They saw the value of the homes change. They saw the taxes change, some went up quite a bit, some maybe not as much. We need to look at what does the town really need and what's really important, what can it pass. Now, the fire station, I think it's number one. The water system, I think is nice, but I'm afraid we're gonna scare the voter. So he's gonna say, but I don't want any of this. And you're not gonna get anything. So I don't know if you've reached out to the voters individually to have a discussion as to what do you want. And if you haven't, your presentation is nice, but we need one more. If you do all of this, this is what will happen to your taxes all together, not individual, but all together. That's one comment. I don't know what this might have done.
I think Mike does a real good job putting together the voter guide for us, and I believe they'll put in dollar figures Or if you vote for this, this is what's gonna happen to your $1,000 rate, your $200,000 house.
Will you send this out to the populace before it's time to go and vote?
Yeah.
We'll discuss it a little bit later tonight as well, so, but tell it, you think we can do better, I think we can slippery slope right now. Call for water line, for some questions. All right, go on to the next one, which is still for Ben, so you've actually not meeting that, but you'll leave soon. So this is another one, again, I won't read it, it looks like it is authority to borrow funds, but it's really effectively a grant, because it's what the state calls principal forgiveness, again, similar to the fourth and the other article, except this is the full amount. So we'll jump to the next one, John. Yeah, so it's a stormwater capital improvement plan, through the loan, but with principal forgiveness, so there's expected to be no direct tax rate impact in 2025, because you have to borrow the funds, but when they forgive it, there might be like, I won't throw a probably small number, but a very small number of amount of interest, but the cost is going to be really negligible. Then we go to the next one, Josh.
You got a question, Mike?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, as you know, I'm all for stormwater management, but I'm just curious, I mean, $100,000 doesn't sound like much for stormwater management. I'm just curious what this is supposed to cover.
Right, yeah, so we can jump right into that, so the $100,000 basically is to fund a report, a comprehensive stormwater improvement plan. Basically, the town has stormwater infrastructure all over in various conditions. Much of it's accounted for. The condition may not be totally understood in every location, and then in some cases, maybe it's also connected or associated with other infrastructure. So the idea of and also connected to then resources as well. So the idea of the plan is to look at that all together and be able to make informed decisions about infrastructure that's improved or prioritizing which improvements kind of from a holistic approach. So I mean, for example, there was a lot of flooding here last summer. And so we have roads or we have culverts that need to be replaced. But if we're thinking then about which ones have flooding history, and we also are thinking about what are the downstream impacts, one over the other. So this would kind of go complementary with like the road CIP plan as well. So that we're replacing infrastructure once and not having to come back to it, and that it is also using funds efficiently and so it's a framework and decision making tool.
Those are the benefits in other ways as far as getting grants.
That's right, yeah. So that's the other piece is that and down the road, once the projects are kind of identified and once the priorities are known, having that report gives you a leg up on the funding opportunities that will come out because it's documented, it's supported, there's a basis for the need. So that primarily is through the Clean Water SRF. And the town is doing some of those currently now, so that would be for the future. But there's other programs as well where that would become a useful tool.
I was thinking, I think we've been awarded close to $1 million over the last few years, including California distributing some of that funding through this program. So that's in my mind, one of the biggest elements, additional grant opportunities to help kind of complement when we do a road project, how we get some money from the state to help fund that stormwater.
Which in the DS funds have become competitive, more competitive. So they have a scoring matrix, and so to hit all points on the scoring matrix, having a report like this would allow you to score well.
So this report will cover water quality as well as quantity.
Yep, and it's kind of inventory resources, it was townwide, so yes.
All right, this is really a lot to get that better, but yes, you can see this slide. So. Kind of into our normal kind of regularly scheduled articles of the first, or the last couple of not usual, but. So Article 7, the town operating budget, you can see the numbers there, so we're looking at total. Budget for 2025 of $8.7 million. Default budget, so that article gets voted down. Default budget is being set at $935. Okay, that's summary. Increase over 2024 of 9.3%. We talked about some of those factors, what's contributing to that. And then the default budget is actually a little bit lower than last year. We have one election in 2025 instead of 4. And for the debt service, it paid off. Some of the major increases, personnel administration, no doubt you've probably heard it's not easy to hire people, and the cost of hiring people is increased. So that's both wages and then associated costs, retirement contributions, similar things. Insurance, health insurance continues to increase. Workers' comp liability, all of our insurance is increasing. Police department, that's a department where we had to make some larger than other departments, market-based adjustments. Fire department increases primarily associated with part-time positions, part-time payroll, instead of adding full-time positions. There's no additional full-time positions in the fire department. Public works, they are adding additional heavy equipment operators to continue to do more projects and have to meet some of those disasters that we pictured showed earlier. Also, winter operations are obviously important, so adding a position there. General assistance, Representative Rose, if you were here before the hearing started, talked a little bit about that, but it's really been a struggle for Swanzey to continue to house folks. There's not a lot of rental apartments, rental locations, the costs are increasing. And the recreation department is adding additional part-time. Again, I mentioned the election briefly, so that's a line item that's decreasing, and then we have a budget for this group to film these meetings. Fortunately, that's pretty reasonably cost effective, so we're going to reduce that budget. So again, this is just the summary. Revenues are increasing slightly, but not unfortunately as much as the overall budget increase. So that's the tax rate impact of just the budget only. Again, we get to the end, we talk about everything after this. That. So that's a breakdown. You can probably see it better in the handout. Hopefully, if not, put it on. So it just kind of shows you the puzzle pieces for the police department, 17%, the red one down here. I believe the fire department is the green one, it's cut off next to it, another large, one on the bottom left, Highways and Streets. So it just gives you a sense of that total town tax bill. 27% of your total tax bill, how that gets broken up between the different departments. Next one's a chart. We do have the full detail. I think it's 32 pages. And I think that's to go to do line by line. You have that as the limited section as well. And that's the revenue piece, largely consistent with property taxes of traditionally been about half of the recover about half the expenses. The other big revenue is motor vehicle registration. So that's the green puzzle at the bottom. Summary here over here. Questions or feedback on the budget before we start?
Hand off to Swanzey. General opinion on the 9+% increase. I don't feel like we're gonna get passed. We're asking for a big capital. We're asking for a 9+% increase on our general, the other big numbers, so to speak. The school district's asking for something like a 3%, 4%, plus a teacher's contract of 5.5%, 5.5% in the first year. We ain't gonna get everything. And so just by way of forecast, if this is a hearing, I'm not asking questions, I'm just delivering. I think that's what we're doing. I'm delivering a forecast for February 4th, but I would make a motion to change that number to be more in line with something like 1.4% increase. Where you get it from is not up to me, of course, that's up to your team. But I think that we have a better chance of having at least some improvement versus the default budget, which I think you and we all need that. Whether I can or want to pay for it or not, I don't think we'll get it. I think this will set us up. Lord willing, we'll get a fire station, but we'll get a default budget. And then you'll be suffering for some things that we need or want to do, or whether it's improving pay or hire people or putting new programs in place. So I really think some things that are over 4% is a tripwire for certain people, especially for younger families. So that's a forecast for what I'll be delivering on Wednesday the 4th as a suggestion for the delivery clock. Thanks for listening.
Questions, just the merits response, but I don't think we've put forward this request lately, and we certainly would like it to be less.
I agree, Mike. I don't doubt you.
I'll get to that, so. With that, we jump forward to the next article. The next couple articles are related. So we have two articles that are funding our capital reserve and extending the health funds. So this gives you the breakdown of what's going into each different fund. So unlike the budget, which is a lump sum, as Mr. Coffman mentioned, these other articles, there's specific amounts associated with specific things. So if this says fire trucks 30,000 and passive, it's what we can't decide on, we'll put 100,000 fire trucks. Those line items are binding. So the next one. Version 2, part of the 6-year plan developed annually by the capital improvement plan committee. Some of the major changes up to our reduction. So Mount Caesar Union Library had a increase last year as part of their renovation project. With at least one phase of that completed, they're looking for about 50,000 less than last year. Another item that's decreasing is the contribution to the Goldenrod Grange Hall project. So that's intended as matching funds to help fund the foundation work at that building. So it'll be hopefully matching grants. Wickham Hall, after this lovely project was completed a few years ago, we thought we were done, and now, of course, it's needing maintenance. So we've got quotes for painting last year, which were crazy. So we need to have some additional funds to make sure the exterior is painted before it gets in worse shape. And recycling center, kind of similar to Wickham Hall, we did the big upgrade. I'm sure everyone goes there, knows, but now some of those kind of routine maintenance items are probably back up, so we're gonna start funding that article as well.
On the capital reserve fund, do you have a slide that shows what's in known now?
I don't have a slide, but you do have it in your hand, so we is the last page. So the last 5 years, it's been going into the fund, and then this last column, estimated balance, is estimated as of about 415 finance director that is up to date numbers. So that shows the balance of the most. Questions on this article? On the next one is the same idea, except it's road and infrastructure related articles or capital reserve funds. So it's highway equipment, bridges, sidewalks, facilities, road reconstruction, and roads. So pretty similar to last year, up $10,000. I think that's mainly this sidewalks, you think that in different fund before. Covered bridges, that amount is both associated to camera projects that we've been working on the last couple of years, so we did cameras for the Crescent Bridge, looking to do the other ones. And painting is expensive, decking is expensive, so they're pretty high maintenance items. Town dams with us, cleaning up the Wilson Pond, dam, we do have one more dam through Swanzey Lake Dam. We have some seed money in the fund engineering, so we're. Works. Yeah, so this is our kind of fire station contingency plan article, so. Article 4, which is the bond fails, this article will save $300,000 towards the project, so just the one mentioned. The impact of this passing, the fire station passing, are basically save up 300,000 a year for 10, 15, 20 years. Or you want to improve the bond. Last couple of years, you said you want to save. So last year, based on amendments at deliberative session, we put away 200,000, so 300 and 200. So we have 5 years in there now. It's half funded by taxation and half from the fund balance, which we don't spend the whole budget or we over collect revenues, so those break the fund balance and we can put it towards items like this or lowering the tax rate. We did both of those last year. This passes and the other one passes, they don't all go into effect with our corporate government. You can have what they call it continuing articles, so they don't have to pass. Earlier, so yeah, I'm not going to read that. A lot of kind of required language, but the long story short is this year we had a West Swansea TIF District Advisory Committee. So TIF is TIF, it stands for Tax Increment Financing, and there was a committee of a lot of people in this room actually. Same Scott, right? So they reviewed the area again, similar to the water company, but not fully the same. They were looking at capital needs in that area of Route 10 between North Winchester, South Winchester Street, and trying to identify areas that could have commercial development and what the town could do without burdening the taxpayers to help kind of foster that development. So Swansea has one tax increment financing district now, which is Safford Drive area. It's called Swansea Revenue Development District. And that's how Safford Drive was built, more nanotech. Flatley Housing Project is going to be in the TIF district. So basically the town borrowed funds to build that road, and the new development will pay it on. So that district is about ready to be completed. And we're kind of looking at the next phase, which we see in this area of Route 10 as the next opportunity. So the primary public functions that would be funded are water line extensions, which is what Mr. Faulkner mentioned. Potential sewer extensions and or sewer treatment upgrades. So even if the water system doesn't move forward, but this article gets approved, if new development comes in that area, it can go to help pay towards the sewer needs. If the water system gets approved, it can go towards extending the water lines, some of those commercial properties that don't currently have. So no direct tax impact, it's not appropriating any money. What this article does is it basically freezes the values around that area, and any increases can go into a savings account to pay towards these improvements. So they don't pay more taxes if you're in the district, it just goes towards these projects. If we end up not doing any projects, the money will eventually just go back into the general fund.
Is it basically set aside as a separate entity then, so any increase in valuation from whenever this passes? Yeah, so any increase in valuation, that amount of money, the taxes garnered from that amount goes into a separate entity.
Separate account.
It's separate account, okay. And so is used only for improvements in that district, whatever they be.
Whatever they be outlined in the financing plan, so there's I think a over 13-page development and financing plan, which is on the website, or you know, is available at town hall. Development. So we can't decide, okay, we wanna build a fire station, that's not development, it's only specific. Water, sewer infrastructure is all that's in there, could be amended later, if we decide, okay, water didn't happen. We want to do it for something else in the district, the body can amend it.
Okay, so it's not relying, the water company and this TIF district are not. Relying on each other then.
Correct. Either could happen or not.
Okay.
It's new, new projects, correct? Not just increase, it's anything to do with the future. Company comes in, moves in on some of the property, all that.
Like to add something to that.
Yes, not get progress over. It's too great.
It's indirectly rely on one another because we purchase the water company and that being upgraded allows water services to go out Route 10 to the properties that we need to develop. Yeah, I think we're not with that much. They kind of don't want to. Yeah, but it's not so.
Perfect.
I can locate a map that shows the boundaries of the TIF district. Can you, it includes, is it just Route 10 or does it actually include part of, North and South Winchester Street?
Second part, north and south.
So what's currently residential will be included in the TIF district?
Correct, because it has to be contiguous, so you can just pick out spots here or there.
So that's changing the neighborhood.
It doesn't, how so?
Well, because isn't the TIF district to develop, so how does this work with our current zoning then? I mean, does that change the uses?
There's nothing to do with it.
Oh, it doesn't.
The
So-
zone stays the same.
So when residential stays residential, it doesn't mean that we're gonna be asking for development on Winchester Street?
Yeah, now the industrial park is tax increment fund.
That won't change the zoning at all. All the zoning stays exactly as it is unless the town changes zoning at town meeting.
Yeah.
But all that zoning changes there. It's just that those properties are included in that district. Any evaluation above that baseline of that date, even though it's residential or commercial, will go towards the TIF district for infrastructure and district. But again, the zoning stays the same.
So if I have a house on North Winchester Street and I'm paying taxes now to the general, town budget. Instead, my taxes will go to the TIF district?
Your baseline goes to the general fund and the improvements to it after that date, say you're paying $500 more taxes, after that date, that portion would go into the TIF district. The rest of the baseline, whatever you're paying, goes to the general fund.
It only comes when they reassess it. So if your house is reassessed at $500, we can reassess it at $600 some later date. That extra $100,000 that you're being taxed on goes there. The $500 still stays in the town. It's just when they reassess.
Or if you build a new house, even though it's not very good, the new house would pay. But it doesn't, the taxes are no different, it's just where it goes first.
Siphon off some of the.
Yeah, so some of the money, instead of going to the town, just goes to this district, which would support improvements for the development on Route 10.
And your house on North Winchester might benefit from improved water and sewage. So you're getting some benefit from it too. It's not just for industry or business.
So if the development required improvements in the wastewater treatment plant. So as a resident on Winchester Street, I would be benefiting from that, but as a resident on Spring Street. That improvement. I mean, I had nothing to do with the need for that increase in the water treatment plant. So who pays for that increase? The TIF district or all the water users? I mean, all the wastewater users?
Well, I don't know if Are there any wastewater people outside of the proposed fifth district? Or
Yes.
encompass the whole thing?
Yes.
I know, yes, the lagoons are in the 10th district, I don't think every time.
So the user would pay. But the people in the fifth district. Just the portion of the increase in value, they're not gonna pay any more. It's just instead of going to the regular Swanzey tax, a little piece of it's gonna go to the fifth.
But
Or pay back some of the improvements.
so we're talking sewer treatment though, and there's a increase in development on Route 10, which increases water use, which means we need to increase our wastewater treatment capability. I on Spring Street might end up paying more for my wastewater treatment than I currently am because of the increased use from Route 10.
But what Joe, I think, said was. Even without the fifth district, we're gonna have to make improvements in the sewer plant.
Well,
So-
that's what the report we're trying to find out, but so I guess,
So you could either pay for it all yourself. Or the fifth district could develop. And help soften the blow. And pay hopefully the majority of it.
well, what I'm hearing is that currently the wastewater treatment plant is handling what it needs to handle at this point in time. It's increases in that are going to be causing an increase in the size or the need for treatment. So right now, if it stayed as it is, there would be no need to increase the capacity of the wastewater treatment.
Next year, the EPA could say we have to do a major improvement.
So he's correct there. So right now, the plant is managing what is coming in for flows in treatment. There's more capacity in the plant, but unfortunately, the way the system is being operated right now, does not increase any more than what's coming in. But the EPA continually changes the permitting. And we continually get warned by DES that there's a strong likelihood that we won't be able to meet the requirements of the next permit mandate. So sooner or later, regardless of the water system, the plant is going to need some upgrade. The question is going to be how much, and that's what that planning study, we received a grant, the planning study being done by a grant, that's gonna be able to identify more of that. But they're making it so more and more stuff has to be tested for and meet certain requirements. Those requirements are becoming more difficult to meet.
So while Joe was distracting you, I got the map pulled up, so up in the kind of northwest part is a viewpoint for kind of reference. This area over here in the kind of top right is the intersection with North Winchester Street, comes down Route 10. Ending in the area of Evergreen level. You know, past Evergreen, in the area just before Pine Grove. So this is the lagoons right here over on the right side. Harry Lane is over here on the west side, so it kind of goes up. We wanted to include the viewpoint for two reasons. One, that's a possible location for the storage tank for the system. If we end up putting a West Swanzey Water Company, we have to store the tank up there. So they'd be using it for the system. And but also similar could end up around here. So it's trying to give us some options in terms of where to put different facilities. And over here is the Homestead Roller Mill, which was discussed. It's not necessarily all. I think there's, like you mentioned, Barbara, there's some sewer users over on the east side of the river. So they're not included in the proposed district. And these districts can only be so big, both in terms of acreage and assessed value. So you can't have the whole town in the district.
Wow.
I have a question, Joe. What are you leaning towards, putting in another lagoon or?
No, I'm not leaning towards anything. That's what the planning studies, the engineers are looking at and seeing what is, they're seeing what they can do about. Correcting some of the treatment issues, so we can make an improvement on the flows there. And then they were taking a look at all the infrastructure to see what will be upgraded, what will need to be upgraded.
I mean, but we're looking for additional flow. Another lagoon or
That's what they're looking at.
Or a force main up to the Keene.
They're looking at that, that's one of the considerations as well, is would it be more cost effective with the flows we own out of the Keene facility, running a sewer main to connect West Swanzey, to North Swanzey and into Keene's flows, they're looking at all of that.
Scott, any kind of a ballpark with that, would be, any kind of a ballpark?
No, I wouldn't want to speak to that, a lot to it.
Okay.
Bruce?
I think we're supposed to have bomb board.
I know, I was hoping you were gonna jump in.
No. No, I'm here to go.
I was just gonna say, Scott, former many-year operator, like you told me about another, would be something likely, right? It's more likely about the treatment end.
Yeah, it'd be, and it'd be pretty much likely that they wouldn't put in another lagoon there because they're inefficient as far as the size of the area that it takes up there. They'd probably put in more of a mechanical process down there to treat the flow coming in. They can treat a lot more on a smaller area than a process like, for instance, the city of Venus. So it's probably gonna be like that, but it's at flow, it's at loading capacity, what they call loading capacity, but not design capacity. And that's the difference there. And Joe was talking about the permits that the state is bringing on to us and all the smaller areas there, the treatment plants, and that phosphorus, the first one, which pretty much lowered the capacity of our system by half, because it's treating for phosphorus. They're gonna have other things coming in there, maybe copper, maybe other metals, are a lot better, and a big lot down there. Regardless of the fit or anything else going in there.
Oh, we are getting close to being done. Oh, Chris is leaving. Oh, do you want to speak to? Yes, Chris.
No, I don't have any minutes to say goodnight, have a great night.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes.
So this is the other article I teased earlier. So this is the second part. So the first one, the water company acquisition. So if the other article passes, this one fails, does not move forward. If this one passes, if the other one fails, we can still reconsider the funding piece at the next opportunity. So these two are definitely tied together. Ultimately, we'll need to pass eventually. Yeah, so that was the other piece that we alluded to earlier about this fail not be brought back again for 3 years. So it's not a try next year. And again, to reiterate, expenses for the water system, they have to be, it's not an option, they have to be accounted for separately. We should expect, so I think 13 is appropriating $100,000, that's why you got probably. With the, so $100,000 towards the ambulance expendable trust fund, which we created last year. So we currently have a contract with Cheshire EMS run through Cheshire County. It goes for another year and a half, goes through June 30th, 2026. The current rates are significantly subsidized, they're shown here. He met with the select board a couple weeks, month or so ago, and warned us, which was not a big surprise, but warned us that when that contract ends, we're looking at significantly more money. So to start to prepare for that, we started the fund last year, we're now putting more into it, now that we see what those dollars are going to cost. So this is really just to try to smooth the transition into higher costs. So this is readopting a tax exemption that the town has had now for 5 years for commercial and industrial properties. So it gives the selectmen the ability, if there's public benefit, to waive a portion of the taxes for new commercial and industrial. So it's kind of like the assessment firm. So it's kind of gives the selectmen a tool in their toolbox of say, developer approaches the town, they really like to locate here, but they need some incentives. The town that gives us some flexibility. New Hampshire, you hear about the Midwest places give free taxes to businesses when they move. We don't have, huge tools like that, which I think overall is okay. But this does give us one tool to use to try to correct it as well. We've approved, we've approved only 2 of those so far, so it's not like we're giving away millions of dollars, 200 applications, but yes.
How long, it says for 5 years here, is that as long as the tax exemption for individual businesses? Or is that the duration of this article?
A second, it's the duration, so each 5 years it has to be reauthorized. The
Okay.
exemption can be up to 10 years.
The exemption can be up to 10 years at a set percentage, how does that work?
Yeah, up to, we had that in there, we took it out, because it was even longer, believe it or not. Yeah, it was up to 50%. Up to 50%.
Up to 50% for a maximum of 10 years. And then taxes would be based on full valuation after that.
Correct.
We didn't go. That one.
Yeah, the 2 were approved, and the homestead will know, and then brought over with the 2.
Those are fine.
So we're into the petition articles, so this was the first petition article, it's, are you in favor of increasing the board of selectmen to 5 members? So we currently have 3, just I'm jumping here. And this, wording, this article is required by the statute, so it cannot be amended as a preliminary assembly. It's a petition trying to increase it, this is what it's. Next one is also a petition article, so we'll be adding second bullet place for voting here at the hall. Seeks to appropriate 15. So. So appropriate $15,000 for costs of local energy program. The press is a stack paper, just see. The town clerk, I'd have to put up to. My voice is falling.
I asked him to bring up the volume.
Ran out of water, Ben Clickens.
Okay, so 2 of the voting machines and ballot boxes, $12,600. The annual service on the 2 machines is $750. Programming per election, which I think they could do all 4, right? The 4 machines, it says quantity 1,500, so that's either 500 or 2,000. The voting booths are $13,721 for 10 of them. Supplies $500, probably an annual fee. And food for the election workers is about $300, and election salaries are about $750 now. So if we double it, I don't think the 15,000 would do it, especially in 4 years. When we have 4 elections. The next year would be the first year, and that would be 3 elections. The primaries, the state election, and the annual county election.
Here, get back, 1 second. It's cut off, it's 1 second.
Michael, Heather's on her way. If anybody has questions for her.
Good, Heather's on the way.
Oh. Questions on that one?
So where we have the petition articles and some non-money articles, this information is based on just the select board recommended articles. Things get amended at deliberative, that can change and has changed in past years. And the impact, $3,000 house, everything were to pass, it be increased to $24,156. Next step, where you get to all the legislators in deliberative session, everyone can make amendments, discussion, vote on articles. Set the clock right here in the hall, and it's the voting day, where those articles that got voted on, is Tuesday, March 11th, that would be high school. All right. Further info, we have some other board items here, they're all welcome to stay home, they're welcome to leave, but thank you all for coming. Let us know if you want to join me.
Good idea. Say, right? Go home. Pretty hard. Pretty good.
How you doing, Chief? How are you? Nice to Way to go.
Not a problem. Have a good one.
Yeah. Red light behind us, going Jordan.
I didn't know it was there today, but I don't think there's a power for it.
I gotta figure that out.
Yeah, I got here, it's like, the levels look good.
Wow.
No, I made about concrete is. I could go. I'm supposed to tell him, now Mike is gonna be this guy. Yeah.
Yeah. What's something about it?
So one for me. Get ready to go sing. I was hiding from him. But you can try to expect me right now because people I gave you the price. But you and Joe have money, so you can. 2006. So I think Yeah, and that was until I went down. This my head.
Okay, that's fine.
We're gonna do it all, I'm in the trash. Absolutely.
Why, you gonna like to play with them?
I'm gonna take it all.
But that was one of the. To give them out?
Yeah, so we can discuss it.
What don't we want them to see on it?
There's only one here.
So that's. I got you the high test. Oh, okay. I haven't do this. You yeah, and I was afraid, I was gonna belt training. I was gonna belt training. Hey, when are you taking us out for breakfast? I'm sick of this pain. I'm getting a little tired of this spot. Saturday, that's not right. You were against that? We're just coming in and put the big screen up, like Sunday. Getting a little tired.
Yeah.
Did you see my picture of me and you, breakfast for coffee? I said, that's gonna be me like.
Slowly working.
Somebody to go sit. Yeah.
Then they were all. Yeah, you got out on the beach with the winds and it's. I'm off. I'm out, see you later.
We want to tell you what I have to see, what happens on Christmas and Vietnam. I can tell you that.
Adopt the financing plan.
Billy, I'm making a motion.
Second.
Yeah.
We got a motion made second to adopt the finance. All in favor, say aye. Aye. 3-0. Thank you.
We look at. Around the trouble. I don't know if you guys doing the round table.
I also want to get clarification, what Heather told me about the second precinct, is what you told us last week. Which is the word selects the location and the word selects.
The location as far as being with the phone.
Because Simon should go out to the airport.
Well, I talked to the board, I think.
Monday.
I'm pretty confident that will be.
Well, I think that's a big petition advocating because this is one of the.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's not spot. The police get all of that. And bring it over. So everybody, now. We'll have to get you.
That's the camera should be ready.
The second one is to go.
People need to understand that.
Because under Warrant, I don't think petition articles, I don't think we weigh in on one.
The money would have to be petition.
I'm not 100% sure that, like.
Because it's 15.
We can't wait.
You have to run out because it's money.
And it's money.
5 selectmen is no money, so you could. Like about 15
Those people
dollars.
may not understand that they're trying to have it, you know, complicated once they're stuck.
Yeah.
You can't say, oh, I'm driving out. You have to go.
You can't change the word.
You have to go there.
Oh, that one, not the 5.
3 of the 5.
And then.
Right.
Really, two votes. Why was it?
What made you?
And we're gonna be able
Yeah,
to.
you're all two.
It's one time. You're all two. Actually, the same.
Yeah.
No,
No,
you got David.
I know, I was confused.
yeah, he's flying. Yeah. He's sitting way back.
And then I don't know, it's one, you know, that's on the very good seat.
But that was 100
Yes,
years
you're
ago.
out, sure.
Yeah, I just want to keep them about it. If I need it.
Diane,
Pretty sure.
how,
I remember that you over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were only in town hall.
and then John McDonald,
So.
I think, John,
We felt that.
he was clerk. And then he was chair, and then somebody brand new, so he somewhere or other. She came in and introduced herself, and I said, oh, you're the clerk. I guess she has to investigate it, right? Just-
We're not sure what it's. Days of school.
So they go to the- I get to see the door and go get the pink sheets and, oh, yeah.
But I put it in the big sheet and he must have lost it or something, because then it came time to
Change
speak.
the number on it.
Very good, they called me later.
That's a good seat now, because it's cool. If things are going too long.
That's just.
That's pretty good. Oh, don't forget to They were behind the schedule before they started.
Yeah, we did an orientation, it took forever. Instead of 5 to 15 minutes, it was an hour.
4 years.
Justice, or. Jennifer Rose.
Oh,
What is it? Criminal justice. Yeah. She was here.
So.
Yeah, she was here right when you getting probably 6 you guys are. He was coming Thursday, that's the right. This will happen. You better go first, Jimmy. You'll get it off. You have to ride up with her.
Figure for the light.
One works.
Did you catch his name? The guy with the suit. The suit that
They're always that.
saying, they're running this business.
Yeah.
I talked to Lauren, I think I got it from, I thought you went to a class or something.
Never seen it, and he
Yeah, wanted to see it.
Bill probably knows.
Yeah.
That's how he's.
I make the motion to adjourn.
Programming for the actual. Not programming.
See you right second.
Before that. You know, the town and the center, and they were looking at. But they don't actually, I mean.
It's like, last time she was like, they go up in volume.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's running in that road. Weren't like, so, go, Don't do it. Everybody can see
She's like, "Oh, I think I have your ballot." Like, okay. I could do that, sure. A little bit for.
Pipes coming around the pipes. Oh, it's. Hold on.
Thanks for coming. Sorry. Sorry, Mr. Putnam.
I think you better off doing. So I think he's got like, I don't think it's good.
No.
So I just said to Michael, if we should talk to the, I'm like, talk to the department heads about looking at their budget. And see what they can do down around a 4 or 5% increase.
Were you at the school?
No.
I don't believe they're only doing 3 or 4. They actually have to do the same thing. We got benefits.
So.
Our insurance. State.
So.
It seems, Dan, he's talking about their system.
What would we at 90? And you'd like to see if they're down for.
Just what would the impact be?
And what was that big increases?
Welfare.
Well, these,
Welfare we took a lot, maybe we went to 280 from 200 to 280 or 240 to 280.
You don't really have control over that budget.
The welfare we don't
You
need.
could make the budget lower, but you can't,
yeah, what are we gonna do?
you can't say, sorry, it's not what budget.
Would be nice. He went crazy, what did he say, 1.5 or something? 1.4.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is.
The other thing, which is the dollars they're paying for taxes now are 20% less than they were a couple years ago. You're ahead of it.
But we can't. They're big over.
All I know is I used to pay 69 cents for a dozen eggs at Aldi's, and I just paid $4.99.
And you can't 4.99. You're gonna make it up to 8.
$8.39 for an 18 pack at Market Basket.
Well, they're going up even more. I just took the whole animal, and not only that, there's gonna be a shortage.
Right.
They killed,
And
what, 300 million birds or something,
And beef.
and beef now, and the bird flu is affecting the beef, so my beef prices, I just texted to Mike, my steak prices. I just sat with the steak lady, the people, and the herds are down, like a third, all the herds are way down, so. They're starting to use melting cows for beef. It's, it's crazy now, my prices, so I used to pay $30.
Maybe it calls you.
I used to pay $30. Yeah, awesome. I get donkey.
The what?
That was approved a long time ago.
So,
Do you serve in horse meat?
No, that it could be used as beef here in the United States.
wow, so I got 15 dozen eggs, it comes in a box like this, and it's flat. And I'm literally $30, $100. Eating. 100 things a day. But one straight box, you get 15 dozen, they come in 2.5 pound flats, square flat, and I get a case a week. And it went from 30 to 100.
So you want Michael to.
That's right.
I'm not even $7.50.
750 a dozen. Like I said, we need to get it before something, because it's gonna be unheard of, they're all gonna be $8. And that's it.
You want Michael to come up with an argument, or at least how it would affect us, so that at the delivery, we could answer in some way. What do you want to do? Do you want to cut this? Do you want to cut that? Where do you want to cut?
Yeah, well, of course, Dan's point is,
It's here for us, the board.
that's right, the board does it.
Yeah.
So where are you gonna cut?
The police department. I'd like to, what is that percentage of? How does that affect us between that?
The higher increase, isn't it?
Insurance.
The police department?
Yeah, but we base our budget on the police department with so many guys, why couldn't we drop the guys?
The name higher.
Yeah, but we still got room, don't we? We got a budget on
We
it.
We just have what we.
It won't happen. I think, but that's where we can do it, we can cut out what's up 13 and 10.
The other thing it does is psychological. Because then they know we're not trying to get.
And then next year. You're gonna be asking. For 15-20% increase, because you gotta get back to where you were.
Not very much, something like that kind of before, but this is part of why I really like the Bible.
Sorry, there's nothing we can do.
I'm not gonna be here.
You're gonna be off the state.
It'll be you, Jimmy, and Megan. And Garrett will be over there just laughing.
Megan. Megan, help me over here.
I'll help you, Jimmy.
Well,
So we're good.
I think so.
what do you mean? I thought we were gonna try to,
Sure.
we ain't gonna try to cut it down?
No, we got to go back to the department heads to ask them. We did it, we did it once, remember, we did it, it was up, it was, what the hell was the meeting? That was at the high school.
No, not the.
Yeah, that's-
Seems to me.
Because that's where he stood. Did he stand up there at the annex? When he wanted the police to get the extra.
That was $30,000. Yeah, I was thinking we were upstairs, couldn't have been. But anyway, I remember we did that, what we did is we got pushback, we just gave everybody, I forgot, it was a 4 or 5% increase, that was it. Across the board, everything I figured out, I remember Lee Dunham pushed back on that, as the year went along, it seemed like we got closer and closer and closer to not being able to pay our bills. Oh wow, because we didn't. Well, you were there. It was you and I and Ken. It was my first year as chair.
I don't remember having heard anything bills.
Well, it seemed like we were.
We didn't talk about that.
We were moving line items around, which happens.
That's right, you didn't want to pay the precinct. That whole number.
Now, it's been back to you now, it's been.
But it's important to know what's being. So, now this year, you know, the highway budget should be much better than that plow. They are sanding, salting for that plow.
Yeah. Yeah, how much money was just plowing this year? 'Cause we could save a ton of money there, but.
We still had a good amount of pain in the back, salt and run.
You just have to go out and budget. It's like, I just did an evaluation on a property. The plow guy gets $6,000 a month. $6 grand.
Well, so that's where I got all my money from in the past. We were paying 18,000 a year, 3 songs, I'm thinking, so I was in front of the printer, I said, it's fire truck. And they said, what? It's fire truck, pay for it, we get 1 good mile a year, we own the truck, we own the garage, and it,
You got
never
it this
do
year.
it. Huh?
You got it this year.
That's right, I got a brand new truck sitting in the garage, salt is in, all these,
Oh, you cut back on salt and done more sand so that you don't throw it off.
well, my road's real good, but I do put a little salt in my house. I just basically say. What, the ice, that's when I put a little salt in with the sand, basically I used to, then I had the street sweeper in the spring, sweep up the streets, and it went done. Nice,
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Derek.
You're excited.